Welcome back to Pieces of Miss Minnie, and thank you so much for joining me and us. Again, I am here with Jessica, who I owe a much better introduction than I gave her last time. Bear in mind, last time I was very, 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 very ill and probably had no business even recording a podcast that sick. But anyway, I pushed through and we got it out. But let me do a better job as her friend. As her friend, more than anything, above all else, and sister. Jessica Caresse White is a fractional COO and the founder of Caresse and Company, which is her consultancy, and she is also the host of Connecting the Dots, which you can find on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the rest of it. So I will have all that in the show notes. And before we start, and I'm going to let her run things again, we have we're experimenting a bit with something we both have shared in common, but I'll let her introduce us. I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all the subscribers. Thank you to everyone who's been watching, who's been liking, who's been commenting, who's been messaging. As I said in prior videos, I'll say it again, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to know more about or have us explore, I am still very experimental. So with that, Jessica, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, like we had a lot of fun on the last episode.
Yes.
We were laughing. We got into some deep conversations about your spiritual journey, spiritual warfare, all these things. And so the topic we're going to explore today is history and religion.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Bear in mind, neither of us are historians. We are just geeks.
Yes.
And I think that was definitely an area where neither of us were expecting to meet the other person and for you to know as much as you knew and vice versa. And I think that was like, and then on top of it, you're just in this fabulous package. And I was like, what
are you?
I was like,
oh my gosh. So
I was like a sexy nerd. I love it.
Yeah. And the fact that we could relate on so many different topics, on so many different levels, so many different interests. And, I don't know, I would say like people also kind of look at us similarly where like we both look way younger than our age.
Wait, you are younger. And when you're my age, you will still look like this. Like you still...
you look like you're my age, okay? Like I was very shocked when you told me your age.
Yeah, it's because, I'm immature at heart. I've avoided all responsibilities as an adult. I have lived a very adventurous life that has not been able to tie me down to anything.
I think that's fun.
Yeah, because I survived. Only because I survived.
Well, I mean, but if you didn't survive, it would be a cool story, Like, you live in your
sure, my obituary. Sure. It's not what we're going for right now.
I know, but I always tell myself that, like, it would be lame if I died choking on a piece of chicken. You know what I mean?
No. I'm going out. I'm leaving it all on the field. I am going down in infamy when I die.
Yeah, of course, you went through your challenges and everything like that, and, exploring different things, living in different places, experiencing different things. You survived, yes. Yes, you survived.
Based on a technicality.
Yes. At the same time, it's like you have so much that you learned from it. Your soul evolved from it, lots of lessons learned. The other day, there's someone who I really admire, and she had shared how she's never left the country before, and she did for the first time a couple months ago. And it was terrifying for her, So it's like, and she's like a powerhouse woman, So yeah, you went through some crazy things and you survived, but at the same time, you have a lot of experience that so many people can't even fathom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've as much as I joke about it, I think And even talking about death, like, I think there's still a lot more I have to do, but like, I could still say I've already left it all on the field. You know, like, I already did. Like, there just weren't cameras around, like, but I was there.
Yeah.
You know, and I already know what I did. So, like, yeah, I know, and that has been a privilege that, like, there's still so much of the world I want to see, and I know I will see, but, like, what a privilege to have seen so as much as I already have. Like,
Exactly.
even you think about, like, 1 or 2 generations ago, women couldn't live like we live.
Yes.
You know, even travel was not that simple, right? But let alone, like, since when could, you know, a brown or black woman, you know, 300 years ago, 200 years ago, I even think about, you know.
Absolutely not. 200 years ago, they would capture my black ass and, like, you know, I would go work for someone some slavery.
Yeah, I'd be shipped to the West Indies.
You know, yeah. And I'm dark skinned, so they would have my ass on the fields, you know? Like, I wouldn't even be a housewife. I would be in the fields. So, and this is a great segue in history.
Yes, it is. You're right. Oh, yeah, the topic. We're just too excited to hang out. Oh, yeah, the topic.
Yeah. But, you know, like, but that's a wonderful point that you have. Like, you know, maybe even 100 years ago.
Yeah.
100 years ago.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to.
And like my grandmother, you know, she was married at 18 and 7 children. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't sound like fun.
No.
That sounds like, and I know she loved us and loved her family, but she didn't get a choice. Like, and she was brilliant. Like, that woman should have been a lawyer. Mm-hmm. She could have been anything. She could have run a country. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just like how much, like, even, I think what really breaks my heart is just like the intellect that got wasted. The sheer brilliance and horsepower that was sitting dormant, not dormant, but like, it was not allowed to be expressed. I think, like, everything has been so patriarchal and so misogynistic for so long that literally half of the species has barely had access to education because they have historically been treated, which is like so bizarre. Because if you think about what the female body is capable of compared to the male body, it's like, how are we inferior? Explain to me what they do aside from like lift heavy things. Like, what can they do with their bodies?
It's an interesting thing because, right, so that's very, very interesting because we have this whole, like, industrial revolution type of thing. But I think, like, in certain cultures prior to that, like, let's say you have, like, an agricultural culture, you need the whole entire family to participate in everything, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was less, like, of course, like, the man still had like the say in society type.
These women weren't empowered.
Yeah.
They were just like, and they were still pregnant all the time.
Yeah.
And they were still delivering, and they were taking care of the kids, and they were cooking, and they were cleaning, and they were working the fields.
Yeah.
That
the kids were working the fields too.
Right. So everyone was so no one got an education. Wonderful.
No one
like,
did.
Right. And everybody's just a slave to the farmland. Excellent. That's not a good strategy. Like, that's not a good situation. Like, and that's still, the crazy part is also, though, that is still happening. So we can talk about the past with the luxury of sitting where we are. But that still exists around the world right now. And that's also crazier, is that, like, it's technically 2025-ish by Gregorian calendar, blah, 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 but, like, it's not actually for a lot of people.
Yeah.
How much of the world still doesn't have drinking water?
I don't know, like half.
It's like half, right? It's about half. And that could be solved so quickly. There's no shortage of money.
I know.
There's no shortage.
No, there's not.
It could be solved so quickly. And like, think about that. Like, yeah, I can talk about like my jet set life or all my education that I got to get that my grandmother didn't get to get. Great. But then how many people are still living like that right now? Like, there should have been a baseline. Mm-hmm. There should have been some like dignity that like humanity it wasn't just like everyone for themselves. This is just like, yeah, I mean, imagine if you're in Afghanistan right now, you're a girl in Afghanistan, then what And that was on our watch. It is on our watch.
Yeah. But the U.S. wasn't there for it.
No. And that is a whole other conversation.
I don't want to see Ayanna falling.
But, it's like that also, like, that really shocks me. Like, I really, you see however many, you see Congo, you see Sudan, you see Gaza. Like, that is happening right now.
It's happening like that on purpose, though. It's not like on accident, like we're leaving these countries underdeveloped. They want and need the countries to stay underdeveloped.
Yeah, so they can be exploited. Like,
exactly.
Absolutely. But it just, like, it really shocks me that it's, like, even the concept of time. Like, obviously, like, we're both history nerds, and you are far more well-read than I am.
You think so? I think you're more well-read than me.
You've read the Gita. Like,
I didn't finish it.
I've had to do the audiobook, and even then, I'm losing track. Like,
I didn't finish the Gita, though. I didn't finish it.
I couldn't, like, I don't have the, like, mental... I tried to read it. I didn't get, like, I could not read it. Like, I had to go to the audiobook, which is, like, 80 hours. But, like, no. You can actually read it. Trust me. Like,
yeah,
you,
I was reading.
And you're not even Indian, right? You grow up hearing Sanskrit and like being somewhat. Yeah, exactly.
No. Yeah, you're right.
Audible.
But I want to finish it though, so now you're like making me think about getting the Audible version though, because the time it takes to sit down and read it.
Yeah,
it's like easier to put it in like the Audible book, and then as I'm driving around going about my day to day. But
like so that the Gita and the Hindu people say it's mythology, and like they're finding like plenty of historic artifacts everywhere, and have found even the road from India to Sri Lanka. They found on satellite the road to Lanka, like so much of it. And then it's like when you actually listen to a lot of the stories, what they're talking about is like we don't even have the sci-fi to comprehend half of what they're talking about. It is so advanced. It is so sophisticated. And there's also like, you think the past was more remedial than the present. Like, but like it wasn't.
Honestly,
it wasn't at all.
The present is a bit more remedial than the past, because right now they strip away so much depth to things.
Yeah.
They strip away the depth from the architecture. Yeah. They strip away depth from movies. They strip away depth from books, music. Yeah. Strip away depth from everything. I was watching a YouTube video about ancient sites in Iran.
Yeah.
And there's this beautiful mosque with just like fractals, architecture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this piece?
Yeah.
Like, I want to go.
And the precision of the science. And as well, like how connected they were to astrology, to cosmology, to basically like planetary movements, like the sophistication of so many different civilizations has actually, what they were able to do with frequency, what they were able to do with like energy, how societies operate. And I think like when we talk about history, and it's more like, the past 2,000 years, which is really just a drop in the bucket. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. They found the first humans like almost, like 136,000 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, there have been Hindu artifacts found around the world that are like 26,000 years old. Like the general, people assume like Hinduism's roughly 4,000 years old, and, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, or all the Abrahamic religions, are all roughly 2,000 years old. But like, that's not, like a lot of this is not true, especially when you look at how old the artifacts were. Then they are finding, statues, and there are a lot of like commonalities that people will find between cultures. Like even like a lot of the Japanese gods actually really resemble like Saraswati and Lakshmi and even Durga, and like they're and they'll find artifacts in like Peru. And you're just like, there was a lot more going on.
Yeah.
And I think like these texts have been really I think they are historical, but, I think our assumption, I feel like the past is catching up with us right now. I don't know. It feels like the past is revisiting in a way. It's like we have to look backwards right now to understand where we are right now. I just feel like more and more of a calling to be like, like even as I've like studied, I've been fascinated with like, we've talked about it, I've been fascinated about Jesus and his like lost years. And that is, like, which were lost. He was like traveling, like they have receipts. This is during the Roman Empire. Like everyone knows where he was.
Well, everybody outside of Western Christianity. Yeah, we were chatting about that because like growing up, so I grew up, Pentecostal and then eventually went over to like non-denominational. But in church, like you don't even talk about Jesus' lost years. Like they don't talk about it at all in church. It's just like, oh no, he just appeared. He was 13 and now, he's 30.
Yeah, and then he just did really, and then he learned about like everyone knows where he was. Like he went to Egypt, and I think like what's underestimated is just how like cool he was. Like he did this at 12. His like lost years are 12 to 29.
Yeah,
and he was like that. He was thinking about things like in such a sophisticated manner, even as a child, that really like he set out, and it's like first he went to Egypt and studied ancient Egyptian science, mythology, religion, and then made his way back through the entire Middle East. So like this is during the Roman Empire, right? Think about what he saw. Like he, so then back through like, so he's moving through like Lebanon, Iran, Iraq. Like he saw like a god in those days. He, through Syria.
And then right off, that's when Zoroastrianism was going on too. And that's a lost religion.
And he would have stayed there. He would have studied that. And then like, and then he makes his way through Central Asia.
Yeah.
So he's going through Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, going into Afghanistan. And at that point, Afghanistan was still Buddhist. And then making his way through Nepal, staying in Tibet, and he stayed there for quite some time. And then he studied Buddhism, and then he made his way down into India. And he was at this one temple. They have records of him. Like, he was there for like 6 years.
Wow.
He was a scholar. Like, this whole thing that, like, he was a carpenter, and the whole thing, like, where are his writings? Like, everybody's...
They do not exist in the Christian
No way religion. He didn't write. No way. A man who was that brilliant intellectually, who probably spoke
multiple languages.
How many languages did he speak?
Yeah.
Right?
Of course he had to speak
Traveled the world for like 17 years. Mm-hmm. The world.
Yeah.
Traveled the world. Like, he was one of the most well-traveled men of that era, period. Like, bar none.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like, what? He can't read or write, but he's studying for 6 years here, 2 years there, 3 years here. Like, no, where are his writings? That's what I want to see, because this man was brilliant.
I wonder if they're hidden, tucked away in some secret chamber of the bed.
I think, like, obviously. Like, but we would never, because then it would validate all other religions.
Yeah, they can't have that. Like, they can't have that.
Because now it's like, it's a competition. It's a fundraising competition. It's like too lucrative. It's like sporting, it's like NFL teams now. Yeah. It's like, it's too lucrative if you actually like, but you can see a lot of the commonalities, like Father, Son, Holy Spirit, like there's like triumvirate Trinity, like that's Hindu, like, like they're obvious, like, and I think like it gets, I also am not, there's so many different types of Bibles and like there, and I think like the Ethiopian Bible is the one that really requires the most attention and like, because that predates everything.
It does. And Ethiopia was never colonized.
Yep. So it owns its history, and it wasn't tampered
and it wasn't burned down to the ground. Mm-hmm. Like all the other historical sites with a lot of intellect.
Alexandria. That, I think, like, there was one event in history I wish I could prevent. That would be it. The burning of the Library of Alexandria. I think that was, like, one of the biggest crimes against humanity, like, ever. Like, in the history of this species. Like, that, I think, if that library, and that was the Romans too. They have a lot to answer for.
It was quite interesting. I didn't quite realize so much of the nuances between the Egyptians and the Romans until like of course I learned about it a little bit here, right?
Yeah.
And then when I went to Egypt back in 2023, we went to Egypt and Italy. And I didn't even mean to plan it that way. I was just being spontaneous. I'm like, we're gonna go to Egypt and we're gonna go to Italy.
They're close.
Yeah. But so we did a museum tour in, I always butcher the name. I don't even want to say that. So Cairo. Okay. I was saying Cairo for a very long time. I was saying Cairo. I don't know. I have pronunciation issues sometimes. Cairo. Right? So we did a museum tour in Cairo, and it was the older museum. They just opened up a new one.
I can't wait to go to that new museum. I can't wait. Please.
Yes.
Please. Next year
absolutely.
we have to go.
Yes, let's go. Okay. Hopefully the war stuff will be done. But anyways, and then we went to Italy, maybe the following week, and then we did a tour of the Vatican. And the tour of the Vatican started off with ancient Egypt history. I'm like, why do they have more stuff here?
Yeah, than they do there.
And so I was like, the hell is all this?
It was mooted.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, because it was stolen. I'm just I'm also wondering, how did the Roman Empire rebrand itself as the Vatican? That needs to be studied. It's one of the best rebranding.
It's a really great rebrand.
And I'm the irony. I'm they crucified Jesus and then
changed.
And then they
was
were
that under Constantine though?
I know it wasn't all. Yeah, it wasn't. You would know better than me.
Okay,
but it obviously it didn't all happen at the same time.
Yeah,
this one little country has a lot going on and was responsible for a lot.
Yes.
I was always there's no I was
I never thought of it like that. But it is a great rebrand.
The irony that the Vatican is in Rome and it was part of the Roman Empire and then it became
and it has its own jurisdiction.
Yeah,
it doesn't fall under Italian law.
Nope.
Kind of like Orlando.
Anyways,
Disney.
Oh,
Disney has its own laws. They don't follow.
I don't think Disney's got anything on the Vatican.
I know, but I just reminded me of that. I'm like,
both got a lot of money, but one has got way more money. It's way more power.
Yeah, right. But they clearly took some notes. Though.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not a Disney employee, but okay. All right.
Disney is interesting, but Disney kind of plays into the whole history part, though.
How so? The American history.
I would say shaping culture in a sense, and a lot of those stories came from kind of dark places within history, and then they kind of, I don't want to say whitewashed it, but kind of
no, for sure, yeah, no. Or if you looked at, I think that a lot of those Disney, especially the princessy stuff, I think has been fundamental in programming, those archetypal damsel in distress, princess, blah, 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 girl swept off her feet, falls in love, blah, blah, blah. It was actually, there were not that many. Actually, there were interesting, there was this segment but it was almost the same, do you remember She-Ra? I think this was a British cartoon, because there was He-Man, and then they came out with She-Ra. And then there was Gem and the whatever. I'm talking about kids' toys. There was this era where somewhere in the 80s and into the 90s, it was still kind of even though you had the Disney stuff, you had other media toy outlets as well. And then it just became all this princess glitter bullshit. And then it was, and I think even, my parents were actually very careful about what toys we were allowed to have. My mother didn't have any army toys or more toys. And I didn't really have any dolls. I had some stuffed animals, but I had to fight for dolls. I didn't have like those play kitchens, like, you know, those like babies, none of that. My parents were like, hell no. Like they were so careful about even the toys.
That's really interesting.
But I was like engineer, you know, as we like.
Yeah, but I mean, I find that really interesting that they didn't allow you to play with all those things, because like touching on the spiritual journey.
Oh yeah.
You know, for a long time I always wanted someone to like rescue me or something, or save me. And then even in the Bible, there's like, in church, there's a story of Ruth, like, you know, just stay attached to someone and someone's going to save you, you know, like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of interesting when you kind of take a step back and look at those things.
But like the save thing, wanting to be saved, was that a result of you just being so beaten down? Because like we have all been there. Mm-hmm. We've all been there when you're just like, I don't know if I have the strength anymore. Like, I don't know if you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to find my way out of it, or like I'm in so much pain. And like, particularly when you're in a lonely place, it's like, but like, did you really buy into this?
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Like I always wanted like massive career success. I'm like, you know, someone's just gonna save me and bring me along with them, or, you know, or something, like someone else. I was always hoping for someone outside of myself to get me to where I knew I could be and always wanted to be.
I get it. I do get it. And I think like fundamentally that is, you know, that is the heart of partnership as well, is that you both bring different attributes to the table and each of you like up level.
But with partnership, it's a healthy partnership. It's a little bit different, because I would say like my husband didn't save me, but he provided an environment for me to save myself. Meaning he loved me through all my seasons and accepted me and let me know it was okay, or whatever, you know, how I was presenting myself, and didn't treat me any different way, like always just still loving me. So I could explore different parts of me, maybe that like I was always ashamed of or something.
Yeah.
You know, so he provided me an environment where I could unravel, essentially.
Yeah.
And he's there to, like, you know, my anchor.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So like that certainly wasn't, I mean, I think that is what a mature woman looks for. You know, at this point in time, I'm like, I know we're getting off topic. I know we're supposed to be talking about history, but like at this point in time, I think it it is that safe space that I value so much more, because I realize I'm like, I think if these past men ever really gave me one. I don't know what that's like. I think I provided it for them, but I don't think in return they've really like, you know, and I think that's why I have, you know, taken a break as well. Cause I was like, I have too much work to do for me and on me, that like, I do not have another distraction in me. But like now, as I'm coming back to relationships with, you know, somewhat trepidation, I think I'm coming back in a far more like mature place, but like I'm also looking at men very, very differently, because it's like a lot of them have a lot of bells and whistles, but it's like, you know, I'm like, are you going to make room for me? Mm-hmm. Because if I am not 50% of this equation,
yeah,
in all aspects, in all dimensions, if I am not 50% of the priorities,
yeah,
and the opinions and the preferences and the direction and the strategy, and, you know, all of it. I'm like, if I'm not 50% of this relationship, you like,
yeah. Yeah, it won't work.
Yeah, no. Otherwise, I'm just like, why? I'm like, I have too much going on right now. I have too much to do. I'm having such a good time. I'm like, am I going to get paid for this? Because, like, I feel like I should, like, send out some past due invoices to... But anyway, that is... we got sidetracked. Back to what we were talking about.
The Vatican. That's what we're on, the Vatican.
Yes. I appreciate it for... I appreciate anything that preserves heritage, that preserves history, that preserves legacy, that, like, has reverence for itself, for its ancestors, for its culture. I think, all institutions around the world, like, should be, you know, I wish they were all so well funded, but, like, you know, I think, but it's what is, you know, what is being hidden and what don't we know about and what is actually in the vaults and what is, like, I feel like it's time. Like, it's time everyone found out what we're all doing here.
Yeah.
It's time we all found out, like, let's connect these dots a bit better.
Do you know what's interesting? I think a lot of that information actually is available if you actually look, because the U.S. Library of Congress, like, all their stuff is online. There's a lot of stuff online that I haven't looked into.
Yeah.
You know?
No, but it's like what's in the, like, vaults. That it's not like
the vault.
Yeah.
I feel like, so I read, I was listening to this book from Dan Brown. I just recently finished it. It's called, like, The Secrets of Secrets. And it's basically about this woman who wrote a book about consciousness and what could be possible, or, you know, just different experiments about consciousness and how it's not local to your brain, you know, talking about, like, a shared information field type of thing, right?
Yep.
So it's like, I feel like there's a lot of information related to consciousness and our souls, but it's scattered.
No.
It's scattered. It's scattered in bits and pieces. And I think there's probably, if everyone's so busy, so no one can take the time to, like, let me look at the CIA, you know, experiments that they released. Let me look at the U.S. Library of Congress. Let me look at this information source. Let me look at this information source. But that tactic goes back to, like, I believe in the ancient Egyptians, where it's like the divide and conquer, where you have your information scattered. So I think, like, the stuff that's in the vault is probably the holistic piece. But I feel like if you took the time to look at all these different, you know,
we could probably put it together. I think, you know, that might actually be one of the good things about AI. And there are a lot of shitty things about it too, but, like, that actually, we might finally have the computing horsepower. Because I've always wondered as well, it's like, you know, when people talk about, like, a certain period of history, say, like, the Roman Empire, like, okay, so we all focus on Rome and the Roman Empire and da-da-da, but, like, there was stuff going on around the world.
Exactly.
All, you know, what was going on all over Africa.
Yeah.
What was going on all over Asia. Like,
exactly.
So it's like we talk about these empires or these periods of time and kind of, like, name that 100 years, 200 years after them as if the rest of the world was frozen in time. And it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like to look at it from, like, particularly, like, the artifacts that have been discovered, that they are really seeing, like, what its roots really are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would actually explain a lot as well, but that would take, you know, I'm sure, I hope I'm for you, like, projects like this are underway. Like, this would be, you know, this would be the great use of AI to kind of, like, piece together.
It's probably already there. It's already there. I think it's already there. We just don't have access to it. We get access to things after these government agencies already have had it for decades.
And then it gets, like, or we just figure it out ourselves.
That too. Mm-hmm. I think it's all there. We just don't have access to it until they deem it appropriate for us to have access to it.
Or unless aliens show up.
And they are
overdue.
I
Were they supposed to show up this year? I thought we were getting aliens.
Yeah, they were talking about
I was
UFOs.
so excited.
But I don't think it's UFOs. I still think that's the government agencies doing some shit, man. Like
it was all coming out of the ocean. It was all coming out of the ocean. Like, it's actually from us.
Do you know how many underground Navy stuff there is around the world? Like, these are so advanced in their technology. Like, they're, you have CERN where they're able to split these quantum particles. They're able to detect dark matter now, like.
Yeah. No, you're right. And actually, that's like the convergence, even going back to Hinduism. I think so much of the convergence of what science has been able to figure out has actually validated.
Yeah.
So much of what Hinduism said thousands of years ago. And then that really, and I'm just like, so what did that society look like? Because if that society looked like what they're talking about, that sounds dope.
I think those societies were so much more advanced, especially because when I went to Egypt and going down to Luxor, all the colors and details in these temples and the vastness of it. I know. Like, that is not what I saw in pictures of history books.
Well, even like the pyramids themselves, and like, the pyramids, like, we say the pyramids, we're usually talking about Giza, which is like, which is really, really, really important. But like, even just this year, the amount of technology that they discovered under it. And, all this time, they're like, we don't know how they built it. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean you don't know how they built it?
What was it? Like, crazy pillars?
And
like was it iron, was it?
Yeah, and another... Oh, I should have looked this up again. But yeah, what was that? That was only 5-6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
After all this time, after this being one of the most, well-known tourist attractions in the world, they're only now figuring out that it has an entirely different infrastructure and skeletal system.
Or maybe that's just what they decided to release to us. They could have known that for years.
But even like, where it was built and basically the alignments and when, different stars and planets are, in alignment. And then that's not the only one. Like, there are pyramids all over the world.
Yeah.
All over the world.
Yeah.
And like, even in America, like there are a ton of pyramids in America. And then it's like, what I think nobody talks about, which I find weird, is like Mount Kailash, which is like technically in China, but like, that is basically the world's biggest pyramid. They call it a mountain, but it's like when they've seen it without its snow cap, it is too precise and symmetrical and geometrical. And that it's like they found that hikers who even go anywhere close to it, like as soon as they try to hike, their bodies start aging immediately, because in Hindu scripture, basically that is considered like that is considered like the center of Shiva. And he is the destroyer. And that is basically like, it's considered like his belly button, essentially. But like, you cannot go on Mount Kailash. You can't even go anywhere near it. You'll like age 10 years in an hour. Mm-hmm. There's something very specific about the two lakes. Like, they have a very different type of water that shouldn't actually be coming up from where it is. Like, that whole area, I'm like, I would love to see it, but like, I also realize like maybe some certain things are off limits even for, for most of us. Like, but yeah, I'm like, why are there so many pyramids around the world? Like,
and there's and they're so like, and there's, like, you see, I'm like speechless because I'm like thinking about, like, I saw the pyramid in Mexico. We went to Mexico a couple years ago and looking at the pyramids there.
And like the Mayas and like the Incas.
Yeah.
I like, that's even an area, like, I really, like, I don't even know that much about South American history. Like, I am very, like, fascinated with, like, Mexico and Mexico City and what it used to be. Like, that fascinates me, and the Aztecs and, like, Cortez, like, that, that is a heartbreaker. But, like, there's actually so much history of South America that I have.
You don't even know.
Yeah.
Because they got wiped away.
Or it's hidden as well. Yeah. No, but there's a lot there. And there's so many commonalities that, and then that's like we're not even factoring in like what, Atlantis, like that is underwater.
Mm-hmm.
What was the whole big continent started with a P?
Pangea.
Yeah.
I think that's the interesting thing about history is you can't talk about it in a linear way, really, if you're really talking about history, because everything's always happening all at once.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like, it really baffles me, even just like how in history, but it's like, we don't know anything about the Sumerians.
No.
They seem relevant, and there are too many stories, and it's just like, it's just a footnote. And I'm like,
yeah,
that was like a 5,000 year footnote. What do you mean?
Yeah, but because like you have, because when you look at the ancient sites where Homo sapiens first started appearing, they were in the Ethiopia region, they were in Sumeria, and then they were in India.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's all I know,
Right.
Yeah,
I know. And then they're like moving on, and you're like,
yeah, there's ancient Egypt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no. And then it's like 3 years, like 4 years of like American Civil War, and you're like, that's history. And I'm like, that's not
they go so much about the Civil War and all that stuff.
Or like European history.
Or European.
But then they skip over like slavery. They're like footnotes.
Yeah.
And you're like, not to billions of people it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
To you, perhaps.
Yeah.
Not to them, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, it's really fascinating because in school, basically, they really harp on about like American history, the American dream. That's what they pound into you, the American dream to go work for someone.
Wait, you got that in school?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you mean like you got it in school or media? Because there was a lot in the media. What were they teaching?
Like, just the Industrial Revolution is so cool.
Oh, as what? As like a historic.
Yeah. Like it's American history.
Yeah.
For like, you get so much American history.
For like white men. Like,
you get so much American history.
Yeah, I know. No, that's for sure.
You get like 6 months of maybe world history.
Isn't that bizarre?
It's crazy bizarre. And even like World War II or World War I, for example, I didn't learn more about that until I got with my Russian husband telling me about what he learned about World War II from Russia.
Yeah. No, it's like good guys, bad guys, a bit of war, Pearl Harbor, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the end. Like, no, and I think like World War I, World War II, and like whatever the fuck we're in right now.
Yeah, nobody wants to call that World War III. Kind of is, but whatever.
Well, these are still the after effects. What we're dealing with is the after effects of World War II. All the bullshit that was agreed to.
Honestly, it's kind of it's like World War I and World War II, like there was a lot of stuff brewing in the 1900s.
And I think just like the reckoning globally that is happening internally. I think what's really interesting is internally what is happening in so many different countries.
Yeah.
In their own respect. However the system is working or not working for them, they are having their own revolutions and awakenings and, just like toppling governments.
There's been so many governments being toppled this year.
I'm like, was that Bulgaria just now? I'm like,
there's been a lot of governments.
Yeah, like Eastern Europe has been super active. Like, South America is killing it right now. Like, did you see that, speech? It was like a week ago from the Colombian president.
I know.
Higher.
Oh, wow.
Higher. He is putting everyone on notice.
Wow.
And he is like, even, with Venezuela, he's like, yes, the leaders, and I have had differences, but he was like, these are my people, and we are all brothers and sisters. And he is really like, I think South America right now is really like, I think it is the dark horse that'll actually end up being in a lot of ways like humanity's conscience. Like, it's very interesting. Like, and it's not perfect and it's not like one size fits all or anything, but I think that is actually like watching, and even like Mexico right now, like No, like Latin America is coming out swinging.
Yeah.
Really, really impressive right now to read the news. And I'm like, all right, because obviously like we're super focused here. It's like everything's like Middle East, Asia, or, Russia, whatever. But like, no, I think what's going on there, I'll send it to you. It's
you have to
brilliant speech. Yeah, he came out like, he put everyone on notice. He called everyone out.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we're shifting. It's like with World War I, World War II was changing the world. Well, even before that, honestly, because I have a theory that, you know how the British Empire ruled everything? And I have a theory that they were still trying to rule everything, but just through proxies. Yeah. And I have a theory that the United States is the proxy, essentially, and to have total control of the whole entire world. And so it was unipolar. But now, with all the changes going on, it's multipolar. Like, people are trying to claim their power back, claim their voice back.
Yeah, for sure.
Claim access to the resources. Even in the African nations, when they start revolting against France, I'm like, yes. Because essentially, like, when you look at some of these countries, especially when you look at France, like, they don't have natural resources.
Yeah. No, it's always the countries that don't have natural resources that want other people's resources. It's never the countries that are like happily self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
They're not,
Exactly. And so, like, what started happening a couple of years ago is that some of the African countries are starting to side with Putin, Russia, because they wanted their own sovereignty and they wanted to actually start making a profit from their minerals instead of being so exploited by countries like France.
But I think like what's even more surprising is like underneath all of this, that unfortunately is normalized.
Yeah.
It's like, it is 2025. We're on the heels, the precipice of 2020. We've been doing this for a while. Like,
yeah.
Even in the past 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, how much it's changed. Like, fundamentally, there is still like that entire like psyche and rationality and like logic. It is all just built on like racism.
It is, yeah.
And like hatefulness and like narcissism and bigotry and just this like
greed,
psychopathic, sociopathic,
megalomaniacal,
like, you know what I mean? I'm like, how are you still thinking like this? Like, how are human beings still, after everything we know, after everything we've been through, after everything we've seen, after all the billions of people we've seen suffer and who continue, like, you literally, you still think other human beings with more melanin in their skin are inferior? Like, how are you so remedial and yet like so dogmatic and committed? Like, how is this the sword you want to die on?
Mm-hmm.
This late in, like, how do you, like, this late in the game, how do you still want to, like, you will die, like, on the wrong side of history, like, so help you God.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's why I'm just like, God, there are fucking humans that still think like this.
Yeah.
And then they still like move around in normal society and they have all this money and, they're powerful, and the people who have influence right now are historically, like, now, like, clearly the tables are turning, like, around the world, and it is a pleasure to watch. But it's like, how, like, I don't understand, like, how dysfunctional that brain is. Like, is humanity's brain, has it, like, come to its natural conclusion? Because this is weird.
I mean, honestly, Padmini, like, I think there's a lot that goes into what constitutes a healthy psyche, And, like, when you get back to just fundamental principles about nutrition, and like, because you have your gut and brain psyche, right? Because you're looking at things from like the macro level, right? But then when you go down into the micro level, the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of dysfunction. Like you can't process things the right way if like you're still trying to figure out like how to survive with food, right?
But these people aren't figuring out how to survive. These people are
They're
trying
trying to, yeah, but in their world, because their world is completely different. They don't interact with.
Yeah. No, they don't. They live in a bubble. It's like
It's a completely so to them, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like the king who thinks he's the greatest king in the world. He has people, but they look at them as just like pawns, right? So it's like the disconnect is these people are in a bubble, and the people, the masses who can actually do something, they can't, because one, there's malnutrition, so they can't even function properly. Two, let's say they do have like some nutrition, they're still like barely getting by, right? Like
that's what we're talking about. I mean, like those are like extreme circumstances. I think actually,
I don't know how extreme that is, because a lot of people are suffering.
No, a lot of people are. And I think there's like a middle layer that if they were organized.
Yeah.
Organization is the key. Organized and operational. Like I think, I don't know, like people are in very, very different places, right? You can't compare like Congo or Afghanistan to like Argentina, right? Or, Germany. Like these are all different places. Yeah. So it's like, and I think that goes back to like, we are all living in different moments in history. So you have to like really contextualize it as in like, where are we talking about? Even in India, right? Like the most billionaires of like probably any country right now, no one knows because like none of that money's really properly tracked or taxed and it's all like offshored. But it's like, and yet you still have people who don't have access to water.
Yeah.
And electricity. And basic education and are living those sort of like agrarian lives still in this moment in time. But I think as at least like, I guess the first aspect of that change has to be information. It has to be mental. And I think like a certain amount of information penetrating deep enough and that like you can now see, because we do have phones now. And we do have the internet, and now you can see how the rest of the world is living. So you can call bullshit.
Yeah.
On your own circumstance if it is at the fault of your government or whomever. And I think like that's now a stage that we're at that people can actually they are more aware.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, well, they're getting this and they're getting that, and even the same people in their own country. And I think that's why it comes back to education.
Yeah.
Knowledge and education. Like without that, you are controllable.
Yes. Yeah.
Without that, you lost. With it.
Yeah. And that's probably why you're seeing like all those governments get toppled down by the younger generation, because they grow up with the phones and they grow up with the information. They know how to navigate. They're curious, and they see the things are so corrupt. And
the system got more sophisticated and sneaky, but I think it also has like, there's also a much greater demand for a decent amount of transparency. And I think people are understanding like enough time has passed, and they've seen change elsewhere that it's like, now what works and what doesn't. Now you can call bullshit. And now you can really see the disparity of like how well your family did generation to generation as opposed, and basically around the world.
Yeah.
Almost bar none, like the disparity between rich and poor has only grown.
Yeah, it has.
It's only grown. The disparity.
And it's getting like exponentially wider, like every year. Like like me and my husband, I always talk about how fortunate like me and my husband were to like even be able to buy our house.
Yeah.
Down here,
Yeah.
you know, we got it at the cutoff of like 2021 before it became like utterly unaffordable to like buy a house and just starting out.
Yeah. Or even, I mean, like, I think about that with my education because it's like my parents' income did not go up exponentially and literally like, you know, everything was expensive back then. I went to college in 98 and I went to BU for my undergrad and that was like 35,000 a year, which was a lot of money, which still is a lot of money. Now it's like 75, 80 a year. And so it's like, I look at it and I have 4 degrees and I'm like, I couldn't afford those. My family could, you know, like that would have been a much bigger decision. Whereas even back then, like, you know, as much as everyone like wants to be young and I'm just like, you know what? I feel like I'm on the right side 40, at least, especially with my education, because I'm like, I wouldn't, but like, that's bullshit. You know, that like, and I was a mediocre student. Like, no, like, I'm a C student. Like, I barely graduated half the time. Like, I finished BU with like a 2.3 or something.
That's
For real. No, for real.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, I matured later-ish. I matured later. No, like, so it's like, yeah, like, okay, my grades got better, but like, like I killed it in art school. Like, I was like valedictorian in art school.
I like art.
Yeah.
I wish I could have explored my art side more, like formal education.
But like, that's the thing, especially in America, right? Like, education especially, it never should have been allowed to be profitable. It never should have just been an arms race on like luxury brands. There is no way, as much as like, I think BU's cool, I cannot believe that the education is twice as better, you know, as it was to, you know, it's like, so now you have kids who are like, say, you know, middle class, upper middle class that are now like, even they're getting knocked out of the race, or if they don't get financial aid, or it's putting their families like into a stupid amount of debt.
Graduating with like $400,000.
And that's a bachelor's.
That's a bachelor's.
I don't like, that's crazy. You know, I think like state schools need a hell of a lot more funding. I think like this arms race on education, and that goes down to every level, right? That's like at grade schools now, and like education, I think how education and healthcare have been weaponized against Americans. And like this all like democracy, capitalism, and humanity to a certain like dignified basic level, like capitalism and democracy, like they're actually like, if it's a democracy, there should have been a democratic base level of education and healthcare, because that is something other countries don't worry about. People aren't worried about, you know, their health insurance, if they have it, if their kids get sick. Like if you're in Italy, it's not a big deal.
No.
Medication's not a big deal. Surgery's not a big deal. Seeing a doctor's not a big deal. Nothing's a big deal, because like at a baseline, education and healthcare, other countries understand that like, if you want a healthy country overall, these are like 2, and then like food, access to like, you know, affordable food, like these would just be 3 basic things you provide citizens who are paying taxes and who are under your watch and your protection. That's like adopting, and you know, like you that otherwise, like what? Yeah, do we work with? Then it's just like, okay, then we're just employees. Not even that, because we don't get health insurance. You know, like I don't even know what we qualify as, but it's like it's a parasite that is eating itself.
It is, yeah.
And it's getting to the end. Like there's not much left to eat. They're snacking on scraps right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You know, it's like this weird thing where you have like the rise of the pharmaceutical industry. Then you have, you know, previously you had the tobacco giants, but then tobacco giants bought up a lot of the food companies. And now you have tech giants buying up farmlands and making artificial food. Then you have You know,
Well, that will be weaponized against us, as will water.
yeah, right. And then you have, you know, post World War II, who knows what happened to all those Nazi scientists that got into Argentina. Some came here too.
Yeah, a lot came here. South Africa.
You know. So it's like, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like this country turned into like an experimental ground.
But it was always an experiment, right? Like, it's only 200 years old. Like, that's an experiment. Like, you know what I mean? And it was weird to begin with because there were already people here.
It was, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The whole thing started off on blood.
It did.
It was genocide and slavery. Like, that, like, karmically.
Yeah.
You know, and then, like, eventually I think, like, those chickens come home to roost. Like, you can't, what have we done around the world? Like, eventually all those chickens come home to roost. Yeah. It is just like, it happens individually. It happens in your own life. It happens in your own relationships. It happens karmically.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you can't, you know, I don't know. I can see it and I cannot see it, like, how it plays itself out. I can see snippets of it, but it's like, I think this, like, people, you know, there is call it spirituality, right? Because, like, religion has a different connotation in America. But, like, even though it started fairly basic and Instagram-y and was all, like, white and cream and, you know, like, white girl aesthetic, like, you know, like, started with, like, affirmations, you know, like, all that, like, you know, little, like, stuff that, you know, put on your wall and love and light and all that stuff. Like,
love everywhere.
Like, all this, like, bullshit. But, like, it had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually, like, it had to start kind of, like, shallow and not quite as substantive. But I think even how, like, you know, yoga made its way into America. Yeah. Granted, like, you know, people have different, some people don't even know it's Hindu. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, it's hilarious what people do and don't know. They're saying all this, like, Sanskrit and they have no idea what they're saying. It's hilarious. But, you know, I think those were, like, the early entry points that had to come into society and had to come in kind of like, you know, almost
non-threatening. Like,
yeah, exactly. And it's evolved. Like, if you see what, like, now the spiritual conversation that you can see on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Very deep.
Really deep.
Getting very, very deep.
Yeah. And I'm like, this wasn't around even 5 years ago. So you can actually see it. You can see it in real time. I can even see it from this time last year. There was a big jump in
You're right, because you weren't in my life last year. I was not talking to nobody about this type of stuff. Do you know how many people, like,
and then I showed up.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm here, you know?
And nothing was the same.
Yeah, you literally, yeah.
I have that effect on people.
Seriously.
I should have the warning sign that if we become friends, your life will change.
It's true. Yeah.
That is my disruptive energy. I'm sorry. That is just like my life.
But no, it's great because, like, I didn't think, or even some, like, there's this author that I really, really appreciate his work. His name is David R. Hawkins, and he passed away, but he has a shit ton of books. It's about, like, consciousness, spirituality, different levels of consciousness and stuff like that. And in one of the lectures I was watching from him, he was talking about how, like, it for you to find spiritually inclined people where you can resonate on the same type of things is pretty rare. So I'm like, you know, this time last year, I'm like, all right, yes, just me and my husband, we're gonna talk about these type of things. Like, I'm not gonna talk about them with, like, anybody else, really, you know, because you know, at the time, like, they weren't talking about it, you know. And then now, even the book I had referenced to you came from one of my friends. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
You know?
No, you're right. Even, like, my friend circle, I was flying solo last year. This time last year, I was still very much flying solo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, this year, like, a lot of things changed.
Yeah.
I changed a lot of people, and in return, they, no, you were one of the few women I had ever met, one of the few people, even when we talked about Jesus and his lost years, and, how, like, a lot of Hindu scholars believe that he was a reincarnation of Krishna. And it was like you were all already so well versed on, like, the Gita and Krishna, and I was like, isn't it funny that, like, Krishna consciousness and Christ consciousness sound, like, awfully alike? Like, but no, that was, this friendship has been, a two-way street for sure. And I'm glad I have found someone equally as hilarious and sexy and geeky as myself. It is such a privilege.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And so with that, shall we?
Yes.
Yes? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining me and us once again. I know that was a windy conversation, and we will build on it. So please leave your questions in comments. I think there were so many directions we could have gone with that conversation. So, let us know what you'd like to hear about. If you'd like to talk about something a little more in depth, or other topics you'd like me to explore. And with that, thank you very much, Jessica. Once again, as always, such a pleasure.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
Me.
And thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, take care.